Hi, everyone, and welcome to Grace for the Journey. I'm your host, Sharonda, and I'm so happy to have you joining us today. And also, welcome to the wonderful month of May, the month where we are known to celebrate everything mom, mother, mommy. And on Grace for the Journey, we're going to be celebrating the graces that moms carry. And this month, we are so privileged to be able to sit down with three wonderful ladies who have impacted my life in different ways. And for this very special Mother's Day episode, I'm so privileged to have my own mother join me, the one that I get to call mom. And I can share everything about her with you directly. So for this short episode, you get to experience a little bit of what I get to experience, a little bit of what I am privileged to. And she is joining us all the way from the Bahamas. So hello, 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 mom. I almost said maybe I can call her by her first name, no, because she is a little far away. But no, I'm gonna govern myself accordingly. And to me, she is mommy. So welcome, mom. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you join us today. How are you doing?
I am very well. Hello, Sher, and it's good to be here. And I am privileged, honored to be here with you on Grace for the Journey.
Thank you so much. And this is I don't want to say weird. This is a very, very, very wonderful feeling, I guess, to be able to just sit down with you and just to talk with you about certain things, about the strength and the different aspects of your life that have impacted me. Growing up, sometimes when you're going through it, you don't really understand the graces and the blessings that your parents carry. But, as you begin to become a little older and as you begin to have your own family, you kind of look and be like, oh, this is what my parents were going through. This is what my mom was going through. So thank you, thank you, thank you for taking this opportunity. Thank you for accepting this opportunity. I know, I don't take it for granted. I know you had to shift your schedule around to make this work. So we do appreciate you here. So we'll get right into it. I just want you to just share what you have, share the knowledge you have, share your experience so that the person on the other end, that if they're going through a similar challenge or they're facing something that you may have faced during motherhood, your motherhood journey, that they'll be able to leave more enriched and uplifted. So I'll get right into it here. Um, let's start with a very simple question, I guess. When you think about the strength of a mom, what do you think about? What does that mean to you when you say the strength of a mom or strength that a mom carries on her journey?
When I think about the strength of a mom, and if I was to use my experience as a daughter learning from my mother, or my experience as a mother, I cannot have strength without having God in my life, having Jesus Christ. He has been the strength for me, being able to lean onto Him and not to my own understanding, understanding that everything that I need is in Him. Being resilient, being able to bounce back despite what I'm going through or may have gone through. Uh, Being able to just garner strength in prayer, in worship. I came from a very strong Christian family. And so that's what I know, and that's where I garnered my strength. It's not leaning onto my own understanding, but leaning onto Jesus. It's being able to support, even though you might feel like, hey, there's no one supporting you. All right. It's being able to praise and and honor your children. Now, many times we think that, hey, children ought to honor parents. But I believe that we honor our children also because I saw children as a gift from God. He didn't have to bless me with them. So it's through all of this that I gained my strength, knowing that God chose me to birth
Hmm.
two beautiful daughters. I
I'm
do
the
not
most
take
beautiful,
that
I know.
lightly.
No,
Well,
thank
all
you.
of us
Yes.
can say that.
No, wow, wow, wow. Well, you guys, you see, it didn't take her long to mention Jesus Christ. I grew up in a very, like she said, she grew up in a very Christian, strong Christian background, and for the longest time growing up, I did not understand why. I felt like everything mom made about God, like everything was about God. But it wasn't until I started to hit my own challenges and I realized that, oh, this is why she always say things like, "At the end of the day, only what's done for Christ will last," and put God
Yes.
first. And I was going through the motions for the longest bit of time, but it was not until later that I realized, what mommy's saying made sense. This is what I need to tap into. So, thank you for not holding Jesus Christ back for me, right? Thank you for being that mom. Even when I didn't think that's what I wanted or that's what I needed, even then I was like, what are you talking about? Like, can we talk about something else? Thank you for still pushing through because at the end of the day, I'm realizing now that only what was done for him, it's what's lasting and it's what's actually keeping me strong and firm. Um, so I'll ask what were the moments or what were some of the early moments and you realized that motherhood would require lots of strength and sacrifice. Nowadays, I guess back then too, when we think about having a kid, it's like, oh, a baby. You think about the very newborn stages. You think about the baby shower, the cute pictures, the cute outfits. But it's way more to that. You're raising an entire human being who needs to be able to function on this earth. And sometimes this earth is a little crazy, right? So like what moments did you realize that, this journey is gonna take a lot of strength and a lot of sacrifice?
Thank you, Sharanda, for that question. And I can't answer that without going
Going back
back
to
to my
Jesus.
childhood and my childhood. Uh, I observed my mother, and I'm going to say that my mother gave birth to 12 children, beautiful children.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I watched her, and it was like she never sweat
Hmm.
anything. I mean, and of course, she was leaning on to God. I watched her treat each person as an individual. I watched her sacrifice also. And, for instance, mom's travels throughout the world happened after we were grown. Okay, so that was one of the sacrifices that she made. All right, making sure that everything that we needed we got. And so when I became a mom, and I allow me to share this story.
Oh boy.
After giving birth, um, and I was drifting off to sleep. Unfortunately, my baby was not put in my arms when I gave birth. They wished took her away and cleaned up, brought her back.
Hmm.
And I remember when the nurse called me and said, I brought your baby. And I looked at my baby and I realized, wow, this is a miracle. This has nothing to do with me. This is a miracle. This is a whole life. And so I began to bless God for that, right? And so I said, God, she belongs to you. And so the sacrifices that I have had to make have been, I want to say, easy because
Hmm.
I gave her back to God.
Hmm.
All right. But one of the things I remember wanting as a mom, wanting to go somewhere. And my mother, who would be my daughter's grandmother, said to me she couldn't watch her. And she said, Iris, if you can't find somewhere to keep your child, keep her yourself. And so so I learned to say no to things that, let's say, events I normally would have gone to,
Hmm.
particularly at nighttime, etc. And
Hmm.
so my life shifted, all right, because of that. Sacrificing And well, back then I might have watched, television. I don't do that now. Uh, and so even movies in the night couldn't be, because I learned from one of the elders uh, when she told me, I made sure my children were in bed by 8 o'clock. By 8 o'clock in the evening, I shut down everything. I didn't take phone calls. If the phone rang, I'm so sorry. We preparing for bedtime. It was not
Wow.
go to bed. It was sitting down. It was talk. So sacrificing my activities to ensure that my children got um, a Christian upbringing, strong, healthy um, characters. That was important to me. Sacrifices of, let's say, if maybe I wanted something for myself that needed, let's say, monies,
Yeah.
but ensuring that my children got the best.
Yes. Yes.
All right, ensuring
Mhm.
that they got the best. That's physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. All right, so that was very, very important to me.
Yes. I'm experiencing some of those sacrifices now, but I like that you said that the beginning it didn't feel so hard. You didn't sweat as you did it because you had already given the children back to God. And yeah, you've mentioned that before, where at 8 o'clock, like the house has to shut down. You're not taking calls, and I don't remember this. Obviously, I would have been very young, but that sacrifice, you know, nowadays, I would say, even from my experience, sometimes going through the early stages of motherhood, it can really have a toll on you, I guess, mentally, because you kind of feel, or let's say I felt, you can feel like my life is over. This child has come to take over my life. Like I can't do all these things anymore. And I know a lot of moms have expressed that before, and then they feel almost trapped, right? Versus looking at, wow, I've been privileged to raise this human being. God has found me favorable. God has found me worthy of actually birthing this child into the world and taking care of them for a particular time so that they can fulfill their own destiny. But to be sincere, in that moment, sometimes it feels like, oh, like, what is this? I can't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore. Obviously, as a product of that sacrifice, I would be able to say that now, very honored and privileged that you would be okay to sacrifice, because yes, you're a mom, but you didn't have to do it. You know, there's no law. That was a choice you made to say, no, I'm going to sacrifice my time, my money, my efforts, the things that I want to do for my child. And you mentioned a very point there. You said that your mom, my grandmother, she did travels and many different things as an adult. And it brings to my memory something that you experienced, or we experienced, I'll say that as a family. I remember being in, I think, grade 5 or 6, and you were in school. Like you were studying. I don't even remember exactly. And maybe it was your master's. I don't, or it could have been bachelor's, then master. I don't remember what it was at that time, but I remember for quite some time of my, let's say, preteen to early teen years, you were in school, but there was not one time that I felt neglected, that I felt that, oh, my mom is just too busy for me. In fact, I feel like for some part I was trying to get away, but there was not one time through all of the things that you were doing that I felt that you neglected your children, you neglected your home. I don't remember any day where we just had to eat whatever we had to eat because you had schoolwork. So somehow you found a way to manage your schoolwork, manage your job, manage your work, manage your spiritual life. And I'm sure it was not all perfect. I'm sure there was some challenges you were having in the background, but it did not reflect on us or deflect on us. I don't remember ever experiencing that. Can you talk a little bit about your season of uh, furthering your education while mothering? What did that look like from your angle?
Okay. Yes, I remember first it was my bachelor's, and then it was my master's. And like you said, I never neglected my family. It meant again sacrificing some of my
Mm.
sleep time.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah, sacrificing my sleep time.
Mhm,
But I
mhm, mhm,
made sure that my family was set, which meant
mhm,
ensuring, like you said, meals were prepared. Don't believe in shortcuts, and believe in doing it in a healthy way. Making sure that assignments were completed. I never believed in telling children, y'all keep quiet because I have this to do. And, I can't play with you because I have this to do. No, children are first. And so ensuring that they are well taken care of first. And then ensuring that, hey, look, I can do now, sit down and complete my assignments. And I'm going to, God has been with me through that. Because as I look back, I could not have done it by myself. I could not. All right.
and let me backtrack just a little bit. I probably didn't give the best introduction that I could because to me, this is mommy. This is the person I call when I need her to listen and to um to help me out, you know. But to put into perspective, my mom is a teacher. She was very, very involved in ministry at church, right? So I think at that time, if I remember, like you were involved with the youth ministry, you were involved very much in many different things. And you teaching is not just a job that's a 9 to 5, right? That was something that was
Mm-hmm.
done at school. But when you come home, there's still preparation for the next day, for the next week. There's still tests to be marked. There's all of this stuff to be done. So that's that work. Then there's the work of your own assignments that now have to be done. And then there's ministry work that have to be done. And then there's family, you know. So to put that all in perspective, there was a lot of things going on. So now you mentioned, to make that happen, there had to be a sacrifice of sleep. And I'll be honest, sometimes it's hard to sacrifice that sleep, because you feel like I need it. But like you said, it's God that would have helped you to create a path and to help you through that journey, to help you through that journey. And I would say that honestly, it was I've been very inspired by that memory before when I had returned to school to do some courses. And for now, as some things are coming about now, because it's easy to look and
Mm-hmm.
say, I'm this age, I'm this old, I have this going on, I can't get this done. But when I think about, I know the things that are coming for me personally, and I'm like, no, my mom figured out a way to do it, and this was before technologies, before it was what it was. This was before many different things, and if she can do it, if somehow I'm gonna tap into that grace and I'm gonna get it done. So thank you for being that example of what can be done with sacrifice and with the help of God.
I said earlier that my mom
Mm, mhm,
has 12 children.
mhm,
But there was a day I reflect, I say, hold on. Why is it that all of us in our adult life with families are going back to school? Why is
mm,
that happening?
mm,
And so I remember maybe a day later, we weren't having a conversation. I just walked into my mother's room at her house. And she answered that question. She said, I didn't have the education. So I prayed and asked God to give all of my children education. I'm like, wow, it's you who have us in school. So
mm, mm,
we're pulling on her grace also. And by the way, her
mm.
name was Grace.
Yep.
So beautiful
I'm
woman.
pulling on it too.
All right. And so we all pulled on that. And of course, she prayed for her grandchildren also, so that they will get that education. So it
Mm.
was not just all me.
Yes, I remember every time we'd go there, she'd be like, "Are you learning your lesson? Are you learning your lesson in school? Pay attention." And then almost every time you get a little lecture of making sure, do your best in school because she didn't have that opportunity. So yeah, she definitely did not only just pass that to you, but pass it on down to us as well. So thank you, Grammy. Did you ever have to put any of your dreams on hold? So we know sacrifice, right? So maybe sacrificing some money here and there. And I shouldn't say it like that, like it's lightly, but were there any big dreams that you had to actually put on hold so your children can fulfill their dreams?
I don't know if it was such a big dream. I remember obtaining a scholarship to go off to school. But I made my decision. I was not about to leave my family for that. All right. So I don't think, I didn't put it off. I didn't put it off, but I guess in a sense I probably did because I end up, pursuing my educational goals much later. But that again, that was because I wanted to ensure my family was, together. Then I remember having a desire, so I thought, to pursue a doctoral degree. And I had done the initial work, etc., applied and everything. And I thought about it. I said, hold on, what's the cost of this? And how would this benefit me? And then I thought about my children. Okay, they would need to go to college, etc. And I decided at that time that, you know what, I don't think this is the wisest thing for me to do at this time. Because I would still have had to come up, or we would have still have had to come up with the monies for our children's college. And so, I would have decided, you know what, it's all good. It's all good. I can live without that. Right. So I don't think, and I wouldn't say it was a dream that, hey, look, no.
It was just
Yeah.
a desire, something that you think was the
A
next step.
desire. Desire.
Okay. Okay. So if I may, like I said earlier, there's a lot of strengths that I noticed. And I didn't notice it until I found out a little bit more about what you went through. Um, and I was already an adult. But as I started to go through some of my own challenges and some of the things that began to shape me, you begin to talk. When you're a kid and your mom is an adult, there's some things you just won't know. But as you as you both become adults, there's some things that you can share and some different type of connections that you can have. As we began to have some of those connections and you started to talk about some of the similar experiences that you've had, I really realized that, wow, this is a very strong woman. Yes, God is backing you up, but the strength that He has given you is just, yeah, it's wow. And so, if you may, as much as you would like to share, I want to talk about some of the challenges that you would have experienced as a mom and how you were able to overcome those. And I guess what you would say to other people that may be experiencing some of those. So, I remember when I was experiencing a miscarriage, you had shared with me that, oh, you'd gone through this quite a few times and you had told me how you had gotten out of the rut, I guess I'd call it, and the things that had helped you emotionally. If you mind sharing a little bit, as much as you would like, about those experiences, that would be great. Just in the efforts to really help others out there that, may not have the opportunity to hear that from someone.
Thank you, Sharanda. And miscarriages, that's a loss that, I'm not sure we're able to understand the grief that can come with it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, I would have had, a number of miscarriages and even a stillbirth. But I think for me, the stillbirth was more detrimental than the miscarriages. All right. The stillbirth would have actually happened before the miscarriages. All right. And so I would have
Hmm.
learned
Hmm.
from from that experience. I think what was painful at that time was knowing that was, and he would have been my second child. Notice I said he, and it would have been a
Mm.
boy. And it happened at 6.5 months. And there were things that I just couldn't understand. And it happened on an Easter Sunday when I should have been celebrating the resurrection. Uh, you
Wow, I
know,
didn't know that.
yes. And so that, yeah, that loss was kind of hard. When I came back home, leaving the hospital, I felt I came here pregnant. I'm leaving with nothing. I went back home and
Mm.
I saw the crib with the clothing, and that started a fresh wave of grief. And then my daughter Sharonda refused to come to me. So, yeah, so
Mm.
it was like, what's going on? Um,
Mm.
but of course, I had some great um, sisters and brothers who just spoke life into me, and I was reminded that God does not allow us to go through or to bear more than we can. And so my thought was, okay, God, if you allow me to go through this, I guess you think I'm strong. So kind of in a cheeky
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
But one of the harder
Mhm.
things then was my sister-in-law, who would have been my husband's brother's wife. Shortly afterwards, she gave birth, but her baby came out of the hospital before she did, and they needed somebody to take care of the child. And I was asked, I can still
Mm.
remember the pain, because the first thought that came to me, and I thank God for Jesus and for deliverance and forgiveness, I
Mhm.
was like, how can they think about asking me to do that when I just lost a baby? But I got over that quickly. I don't allow those kinds of things to remain.
Mhm.
And, I
Mhm.
realized, hey, they need somebody to hold this baby. And so, yeah. And what's amazing was this would have been a boy. All right. And I
Yep.
believe that being able to assist them helped with my healing. Now, what happened for a
Mm.
few years after that, and I didn't realize it maybe until maybe the around the 8th year, every time around Easter, I would reflect. And so the first Easter, I would have said, this is the first Easter after the stillbirth. I would have said something like, "Oh, my son would have been 1 today." And then the next
Mhm.
year, "Oh, my
Mhm.
son would have been 2." And all through the year, I wouldn't think about it. And then I think around the 7th or 8th year, I said, "Hold up, you're holding on to something." And it was then that I, talked to God. And I said, "Okay, God, you know why." All right. Now, people had their
Mhm.
theory. They figured that God knew I couldn't take care of this child, and God knew this boy wouldn't have been anything good,
Mhm.
and all kinds of things.
Mhm. Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you from that loss, though, what what I learned was that God gave me a grace that allows me to just connect with young men in a special way.
Mm. Yes. Yes.
And I'm like, where did this come from? All right. So I am
Mm.
grateful to God for taking those experiences and helping to allowing me to heal and to be restored. And so, like you said, when you were, and in fact, there were times when I actually forgot I had those experiences. But when you experienced a miscarriage,
Mm.
I was able to say certain things to you at that time, because
Mhm. Mhm.
we don't have to live in grief about,
Nope.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned two things. Two things. So you said that every year you'll be saying, "Oh." my son would have been this age and my son would have been that age. Today is also very special because my daughter who passed 2 years ago in this summer, she would have been, the day this is airing, she would have been turning 8. And so it's funny you said that. So the day is also special for that reason as well. That was the day motherhood took me to another level when she was born, and everything we went through there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then there's some past episodes that you need to go and listen to. Um, and with something you just said, what was I not born on Easter Sunday? Was I born on Easter Sunday as well,
Ah,
or was
why
it a Palm Sunday?
why you want to test me?
You don't remember?
Um,
No, I think I was born.
yeah,
I
on
will do. I will go look
Easter.
at the calendar
Yeah,
later. But could you look at that though? Because in life, as we go through
Easter.
things, that you could look at. It's very easy to look at what's going on wrong, right? It's very easy to remember the challenges and all of that. So you gave birth on a Easter Sunday, and then a few years later there was loss on a Easter Sunday. You know, but imagine how the enemy could have now been. I don't know what was going through, as on those days. Could be thinking about, oh, I gave birth to my firstborn on this day, but he might have been switching you next direction. Well, I lost on this day, so that's just very interesting, actually, because I,
Mhm.
I I think it's Easter Sunday, not, I don't think it's Palm Sunday. But we can look back and hash it out behind the scenes. But yeah, to go through that, just to think about having come to 6.5 months, and by that stage you're buying things, you're getting ready for
Mhm.
the baby, and you have to give birth at that stage. There's no just passing out. Like, you have to go to the hospital and go through that whole process and to leave with nothing. I've been through some things, but I've not been through that. But to imagine that feeling in that moment, and just to see you just come out of it and to see who you have been. i, I didn't even know I only found out about some details about that just last year, actually. I didn't know you had to care for my cousin right after too. So to know that God thought you were so strong that you could go to
Mhm.
this and then you can still care for a boy shortly after.
Wow.
That's just amazing, and it's just wonderful to watch, and privileged to call you mom for that reason. So what I would ask you then, as I went through some of my challenges and the things that, because you can raise your children and you can do the best you can so that they don't have to experience the same things that you experience as a parent. But some things, in order to shape them, some things are out of your control, right? And some things God would allow them to go through, and some things you just have no control over. So, having gone through all of those things that you have, as I went through my personal challenges, what was it like as a mom? I remember when we had called you when we were rushing to the hospital, when I was about to have an emergency C-section. You said something later. You said, I had to switch my mom brain off and I went into prayer warrior mode or something along those lines. But as I went through those challenges, how like I guess what was your perspective? Because I've also heard that and learned that you can love someone, I guess, out of their destiny and love them so much that they don't get to learn what they need to learn. So what was your perspective watching and helping me through those many challenges that I would have experienced as a mom?
Okay, so I would have learned how to step back and really check into God and say, okay, God, what is it that I need to do? But in my role as a teacher, I determined that I would not serve the darlings' children, the nation's darlings, or other the children that I taught. I would not give them more and give my children less. As a counselor, the support that I give to my clients, I figure if my children are going through any situation, I should give them similar. So I could not shortchange that. And so I knew that I needed to stand and be a support. But I had to find out what support I needed to be so that I allow God to do what He has to do. Because I know I cannot do it for you. All right. But there,
Mm-hmm.
of course, there have been times when I say, okay, God, I said, I am her mother and I'm watching her, and this seems hard, but you're God and you know what you're doing. But God, give us some slack. Have mercy. So, we would have
Thank you for
had
those prayers.
we would have had those kind of conversation. But
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
always aware that God knows the heart, and He knows what you need. I I might only think that I know, and so yeah, I was careful not to rush in, but to
Mhm.
only provide support as He allowed me to, so that He can do the work within you.
Wow, wow. And stepping back, and yeah, that's not easy all the time, right? So I appreciate you doing that. I don't know if I appreciate it at the time, but like you said, God has to do what he has to do. Um, I want to say that I just looking over your life as a whole, I'm looking at the many, many people that you have helped. The many, whether it's from like youth group, whether it was from the school system, whether it was when you were as a teacher, when you became a counselor. I remember you started off as a teacher, like in the classroom, and then I remember you went into counseling. You were already counseling in the classroom, and God led you into that path. And you had said that you didn't want to teach elementary school, and when you went to counseling at that time, I think you could correct me if any of this is the wrong timeline, but I believe you were a senior high teacher and you liked senior high. That was just your niche. And when you became a counselor, if I'm not mistaken, you went to junior high because I think you wanted to get the problems before, get the kids earlier. And then next thing I know, you're in elementary, the school, like when you never wanted to go to elementary. And then God transitioned you into the Ministry of Education, where you're not just helping the students, but then you're helping the teachers and the staff and anybody related to the education system. So the amount of people that you have been able to help um, just through your passion and through the giftings that you have been given has been really, really tremendous. But you didn't let all those challenges, that we didn't even speak about half of the challenges, there's many, many more, right? But you didn't let any of those challenges stop you from helping others. And that's one thing I would say. You never led or led me with experience. You did not allow your negative experience in any way to
Mhm.
influence any, any decision that I would have to make. And you did that for many, many others, I'm sure. And so while you could have allowed, God forbid, those situations to hold you back, it groomed you. It gave you more grace. It gave you a passion to help more people. And y'all be careful what you say, because I used to say I want to be a, what did I say, a teacher, a preacher, and a mommy like you. And even to the point of like this whole counseling thing as well. Like I'm just looking like, am I turning into my mom? But it's a good person to turn into. So so I thank God for you allowing yourself to be used by Him, and just to be able to touch so many lives. And if I could touch half of the lives that you've touched, I know, like, it would be great. So just to see that you've been a really, really wonderful example. And like I said before, some of these things that you don't really notice until later, right? You don't know in the moment the value that your parents, your mom, especially, is adding to you. But I want to say now publicly, I really appreciate you for all that you have done, all that you're still doing. There was a time that I didn't want to listen to the instructions. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. But now I'm like, hey, this is happening. Can you tell me what to do? Okay, what should I do? And you're like, go and ask Jesus. I'm like, but can you tell me what to do? So when you become an adult and you just wanna, I just want to, like, can you just tell me? Because I know you know. But I even appreciate you for turning me towards Him and showing me how to lean on Him. So thank you for that. And I will allow you to close. What will you like to say to that we might not have covered yet? What would you like to say to any moms, new moms, grieving moms, healing moms, exhausted moms, or moms just enjoying their mom journey, whatever, all the moms, or however you led to? What would you like to close in and say to them?
Thank you so much. One of the things I like to say to mothers is that motherhood is a gift. And the person who gave the gift knows exactly everything about the
Mm.
gift and how to care for the gift. And so we do not have to do it alone. Go back to Jesus, go back to him. Then you need to build a community. Now, there were times,
Yeah.
disclosure, there were times when, yeah, like Sharonda said, she thought she knew it all. She wanted to do her own thing, etc. And I wasn't getting stressed about that. I always made up my mind, no children were going to stress me. And so there were persons that I
Wow.
connected with. And
Yeah.
now she's going to know my secrets that I connected with. And I say, okay, so your daughter, this is happening, etc., etc. I am going to send it to her,
Wow,
to
I didn't
you.
know this.
Make sure you speak with her. I say, I don't need to know anything. Okay. What I did
Mm,
was
mhm, mhm,
provided
mhm.
persons. And so I would probably have said, Sharonda, you're talking about this problem. You ever thought about speaking with John Doe or Mary Sue? Why don't you check one of them out?
Mm.
And case was closed. I That's it.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is you don't have to do it all by yourself. And then of course I had a great youth leader at that time, and she was a mom and she was going to the family islands on mission trips. And I had to ask her, how is it that you're able to leave your children? And she said to me, Iris, I've said to God, God, you've asked me to do X, Y, Z. And if I go and do your business, God, then God, I'm leaving my children in your hands. Listen. And that's when when it was time that I had to leave, I know that, hey, look, my children were in good hands. Okay.
Mhm,
And so
mhm,
it's having a community that you can lean on to. Um, Mothers, listen, children are so special. Really talk to God about what your role should be in their life and how to encourage them when they are doing, when they do something and it's wrong. Listen, you don't have to carry any embarrassment for any children. Jesus died for that. So that's not your role.
mm, mhm,
Jesus died for that.
mhm,
And so reposture yourself and find, okay, how do you deal with this? And so sometimes when children are walking the wrong way, parents tend to, in a sense, condemn them, and give them a tongue lashing, etc. And I always thought, and this
mhm,
is probably how I got into counseling, what does the tongue lashing do? Because it's frustrating you as a parent, you getting hot, and then the child is getting upset and probably already tuned you out. Uh, but what about
mhm,
waiting until that child has calmed down and you're calm, and then you go and find out? Talk with the child, not at the child and not to them, because you want that conversation with, and find out, you know, was that the best decision you could have made? How would that impact your future, etc.? So you want them to be able to think and about their life and where they're going and to make wise decisions. So we can ask God for that wisdom. We can ask him for that grace. All right. So look at your children differently. For those of you who might be saying, children get on your nerve. Okay, let's back up. What's happening with you? And I always say, and this might stink, children didn't ask to be here. So now they're
mhm,
here, your life changes. Your life changes, and it has to change to involve the children. They are God's prized possession you're carrying. They're God's prized possession. They're gifts. And so you have to protect them. And I believe God would honor you for it today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I just had a flashback when you talked about sitting down and talking with your children, not at them. I used to say, Can't you just beat me and leave me alone and let me be instead of having this hour conversation? But thank you for talking to me and making me write those letters and all that stuff. This is the most creative mom, by the way. Like the most creative form of discipline. Yeah, that's the go-to one. So once again, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Thank you for making this happen. Thank you for being you. Thank you for accepting this invitation. And thank you for being the first guest on Grace with the Journey. I mean, there's no other way. I think, obviously, if it was not for you, I wouldn't be here, and Grace with the Journey would not be here. So it's really a privilege to have you here today. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you have been blessed by this episode, please share it with somebody that you know may be going through. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And definitely don't hold it to yourself. There's a mom out there that you know needs to hear some words of wisdom. Please, please, please share it with them. And love you guys. And we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in.